If you're a new police officer, you must watch this video and get these 20 tips. If you are a training officer, then I encourage you to share this video with your rookies when you need a break from them or just want them to learn a lot. Hey, what's going on? My name is Scott Medlin and I'm an author, and these 20 tips come from my book, 101 Useful Tips for Rookie Police Officers. You can get it. The link is below or up there. Anyway, please understand these tips are in addition to what you must know when it comes to knowing the law and policies as to what you can and cannot do on the job as a police officer. That's very important, but I want to add more to it. The first thing is, which I've hit on in other videos for rookies before, but it cannot be said enough. This is your job. It is not your life. Yes, it's a calling. Yes, it's your passion. It's a lot of what you do and who you are. I get it. It should never be your identity, because when that day comes, you're no longer working in policing. If you let it become your identity, and your value comes from who you are as a police officer, and that's your identity, and you are either forced out of the job because of medical retirement, you have to leave the job because it's not working out for your family anymore, or you do make it all those years and retire, eventually that day comes when you can't work as a police officer. Does that make you less of a person because you're no longer a police officer? Absolutely not. Do not internalize it as to who you are. Number two, I would have to say, is never forget why you decided to get into law enforcement. For many police officers, they get in for the right reasons. There's a video I made about why not to get into law enforcement, or you should not get into law enforcement because of, and that link is up there. But never forget why you decided to get in. At one point in my career, I was about 8 years in, I was part of an internal investigation where another officer was doing something wrong, and I was in the unit the officer was a part of. I was brought in for questioning. It was just a whole very frustrating process, and I went up to a retired police officer who used to work as the head of security at a company where we worked off duty, and I told him, I said, I'm very burned out. I didn't give him details of the internal. I just said, I'm really starting to wonder what in the world, if all this is worth it anymore. And he said, why did you get into it? And what do you know? 8 years in, I'd already forgotten why. I had to actually think about why I got into it. Once he made me think about why I got into it, what do you know? It felt more refreshing to be in, and I was full speed ahead again. Number three, the word praise comes to mind. What I'm talking about is, if you're in this job seeking recognition, seeking attention, seeking accolades for stuff you do, please, you're in the wrong profession. I encourage you to shift your perspective. It's not about the plaques. It's not about the rewards. It's about that difference you can make in that young person's life. It's about being able to settle a conflict that someone's having with another person. It's about doing a lot for others and not wanting attention in it, please. Because when you're in it for seeking awards and plaques and all that kind of stuff, I view that as egotistical. I believe your real reason should be to make an impact, not receiving external factors such as awards and stuff like that. That's just my personal opinion. Number four, you have to have a bigger self-belief than the opinions of the haters. Here's what I'm talking about. Your belief in yourself and what you're doing as a police officer, which can still be a noble profession, has to outweigh the negative opinions of the haters who just put the blanketed negative hate on policing. One of my personal examples is back in 2014 when that unfortunate incident between Michael Brown and the Ferguson police officer happened. Michael Brown ended up dying during that interaction, and the phrase "hands up, don't shoot" became about throughout the media. We know for a fact that "hands up, don't shoot" never even happened. It was never said, but media ran with it, and people were saying that to me and all other police officers across the country. And the thing is, was it frustrating? Yes. But was it demoralizing? No, because I believed more in what I was doing than that blanketed negative hate. Hope that makes sense. You can't let the hate outweigh your self-belief in what you're doing and what you can do on the job. Number five, and this is one I am guilty of, many other police officers are guilty of as well, but as long as you're aware of it and you find yourself getting into it, then you can work your way out of it, learn from it, and do better the next time. And that is avoid the department drama. Oh my gosh. I think some police officers, they don't know how to have a conversation with coworkers unless it's about another police officer or other police officers. Just avoid the drama, avoid the negative talk. One of the best pieces of advice a captain gave me was, whenever that stuff starts, you get in that police car you have on patrol and you drive the heck away. Number six, I would say, when you mess up, you fess up. In other words, own the fact that you're going to make mistakes, and there are consequences for said mistakes. If you accidentally drop the radio mic that you use in the car on your siren button whenever you're trying to place the mic back to where it belongs, and you accidentally drop it on the siren and it goes off in the middle of a call, and the call was in response to a prowler at night, and you alert the prowler that you're there because you accidentally hit the siren button, look, own it. Just say, I messed up. I'll do better. Not that I would know what that is like at all. Number seven, there is always something to learn when working in law enforcement. You can never assume that you know it all. Please don't ever get to that mindset. Seek continuous training. Seek continuously grow as a person. Work on you. Stay in shape. Where there's weaknesses, attend training to help you get stronger in those weaknesses. Just know that there's always something to learn, and you're going to come across situations that probably no other officers have come across, and you just have to put your heads together and think logically without overthinking and and get things resolved and handle it the right, lawful way. But keep learning. It's very crucial. Number 8, your mental health is a massive priority. I'm serious. Statistically speaking, in addition to police officers not only dying in very concerning numbers from cardiovascular disease and cardiovascular issues, but suicide. It's a big threat. I didn't know it was a big threat until I was over 10 years into the job. It was not right. It should have been brought to the forefront, and I was very enraged about that. That's why I dove into the fight to help protect police officers from the risk of suicide. But you can't be in denial. You just can't say, well, I'm good. It would never happen to me. You think those other officers who went through all that and ended up taking their own lives thought, well, it'll happen to me? No, of course not. You can't be complacent with your mental health the same way you can't be complacent with external risks and external factors on the job. Take care of you. It cannot be said enough. Number 9. Now, I will give former police officer and now professional speaker and mentor and coach Kwesi Millington 100% credit on this tip. Get a lawyer when you are involved in writing a statement in an investigation. Get a lawyer. Where I worked for numerous years, I paid dues to the Police Benevolent Association, and I would have legal coverage through that association. Number 10, your family has to come first. Here's some upsetting news to some of you. Your department is not your family. When you are gone from that department, they will move on without you. And I don't have any harsh feelings about that, but it is the fact. I can tell you right now, there's a handful of officers that I worked with for many years who I'm in touch with now. Just a handful. But the many other officers, the department where I work, they've moved on. And there's nothing wrong with that, but please don't get so loyal to a department that you lose your personal family, your personal friendships, and meaningful relationships in your personal life. Because when that day comes, when you're no longer a part of the department, your blood family or your family, your friends, the people that matter most to you in your personal life, they're the ones that will be there for you, not the department. Number 11, take time for you before and after shift. And this doesn't have to be a tremendous amount of time. But when you wake up in the morning, don't check your phone. Prime your mind through exercise, reading, meditation, something like that. Yeah, I said it, meditation. It doesn't take that long. But when you take time for you, you tune your mind and body up that much better to be that much better of a cop for the citizens you will encounter and interact with during the shift. And then when you are done with shift, sit in your car before you head home, do some deep breathing, listen to a good song, write things you're grateful for. Just unwind a little bit before you show up to your family, because I can tell you from experience, I showed up with the stress from the job at home. I remember at one point my wife told me, she said, you're not going to bring that job home to me like that again, because I was pretty snippy at something because we were dealing with habitual felons and it was very frustrating, and I brought that frustration right home. Take care of yourself before and after shift consistently throughout your career. Number 12, when it is your first time in the driver's seat as a rookie police officer in that police car, I encourage you to ask your training officer, look, can we go to a deserted area, a vacant parking lot where I can get familiar with the police car equipment so that when you do have to make that first traffic stop, when you do have to respond to that first call and you might need some lights and stuff like that, you'll know where the equipment is and you're not stressing out. In addition to the stress of doing something for the first time, you're not stressing out about where that equipment is in the car. Hopefully your training officer will be all right with that. And if they write it down on your training report as a remedial training, who cares in the long-term run of thing? Who cares? I used to always have my rookies go to a deserted area so they could get familiar with the lights and the spotlight and all that kind of stuff before we actually went out there and started doing work. Number 13, do not talk like a cop. What the heck do I mean by that? There's this universal language police officers speak. Unfortunately, it can sound confusing to people. It can be frustrating to some people. And when you're in a trial and you're speaking to a jury, they don't know your language. Talk to them in plain English. Here's some examples. I hear cops say, I exited the vehicle. You mean get out of the car? Ascertain. The word ascertain, that means find out, research, ascertain. A verbal altercation, that's an argument. A physical altercation, that is what we call a fight. I observed him or her moving in a hurried fashion. He or she was moving fast. I conducted a Terry frisk of the party. I did a pat down of the person. The male party involved, the boy or man involved. I pulled you over because you violated General Statute 2158B1. How about I pulled you over because you did not stop for that stop sign? I could go on with other ways cops talk like cops. Please just use common English. It's not that hard. Number 14, rehearse scenarios in your mind. We act better after we've been exposed to certain things, such as your first foot chase, your first fight, your first argument, your first time someone argues at you. All these firsts that you'll be exposed to as police, you can start to expose yourself first by mentally rehearsing how you would react, and that is a level of exposure. First jumping run I had where someone ran for me on a traffic stop, I started to do what I had been rehearsing in my mind, and as I was running after the guy, looking back at the car, making sure no one else was in it, coming up from behind me, and then I lock my car with the key fob. As I was doing it, as I'm running after the guy, I'm surprising myself that I'm doing what I had mentally rehearsed. So I cannot stress that enough. Think about how you would handle certain situations. Number 15, protect your personal information. Now, chances are, prior to law enforcement, you never really had to think about this, but the thing is, your information is all over the place online, and police officers getting doxxed is a real thing. An officer I used to work with, he had all of his major purchases, such as his car, his property, were all in his dad's name. I'm not saying that's what you absolutely have to do, but there's other ways to protect your identity and not make it such an easy opportunity for those who have ill intent on finding out where you live and harassing you and your family, or doing worse. There's other ways to protect your family. And I encourage you to watch this video when I interviewed Pete James, the owner of officerprivacy.com. He will teach you how to protect your privacy. There's also a link down below to get started with that service, and that's the service I use. Number 16, body cams are a great thing. In my opinion, they really are. I was a police officer on patrol back in 2016 when my department rolled out body cams for the first time, and it was really, really good in my opinion, because if you're not doing anything wrong, I have nothing to hide. So what? The body camera's there. It'll expose everything that people say you did to them when you didn't do it, and it exposes them. It's like, I remember one time a friend of mine, he got consent to search a vehicle, and the lady called the police department later and said that officer did not get my consent to search my vehicle, and the supervisor watched the body camera footage. I was right there in the computer next to him typing up a report. You see on the video the officer asking for consent and the lady giving consent. And then there went her argument. Gone. Body cams are a great thing. Make sure you have that darn thing on, but make sure you turn it off after a call, because I don't know what it's like to go to the bathroom and the thing's still recording. That's not embarrassing at all to tell your supervisor when that happens.
You lack discipline.
Number 17, there's some unsung heroes in the police world. You know who they are? The dispatchers. You must treat your dispatchers very nice. Some officers will get very snippy with them on the radio. Now, there are bad dispatchers, and yes, it can get very frustrating when communicating with them and their lack of communication towards you so far as information that you need to know that they didn't find out ahead of time, or they're still not finding out even though you asked. But for the most part, I worked with very good dispatchers, and I made sure that I was very nice to them and did a lot of work on the computer, so I didn't have to ask them everything. But please do not get snippy with the dispatchers. If you get an attitude with them, don't be surprised when you're going to the barking dog calls. Number 18, let's get real. I really debated whether or not to put this tip in the book that I wrote, but I did. It is not your job when you get into policing to see how many coworkers or people on calls that you can hook up with. I hate I even have to say it, but unfortunately, so many police officers have lost their jobs because they just acted out of impulsive lust or said inappropriate things to a female or male coworker, and therefore it backfired. Yeah, there were consequences. They got fired. Marriages were lost. I saw it all. No police officer gets into the job and says, I look forward to the day when I get attracted to a coworker and that coworker and I start flirting at first, and then I know that coworker's married, but I don't care. I keep talking to that person, and eventually it gets inappropriate and out of hand. I can't wait to lose my career once that happens. Nobody who becomes a police officer says that. So come on, think logical. Avoid the temptations. Don't cave into things that start as just a simple thought. I think I've said enough about that. Number 19, get to know the families. Here's what I mean. There are certain people in your city or your county that unfortunately are career criminals. They have family members who don't like the police showing up at their house all the time because of Jim Bob committing crimes all the time. Be very respectful to these family members. Talk to them, get to know them, and you'll be very surprised they'll actually help you out in certain situations, say if you're looking for Jim Bob. But have some empathy and understand why they're frustrated every time you come looking for Jim Bob. They're just tired of the police coming because of that one family member. And yes, I know what some of you are thinking. Well, they shouldn't have Jim Bob in their house. You don't know everyone's personal story. Just be respectful to the family. It will help you immensely. Last but not least, in these 20 of 101 useful tips for rookie police is social media. Did you think I wouldn't mention it? Oh gosh, let me tell you, no post is worth your career. I've seen too many police officers post inappropriate things, and therefore they get pulled into an internal or lose their job because of inappropriate posts. And you might say to yourself, well, it's my personal post. I can do it my personal way. You are a reflection of the department where you work. Also, I would never put a picture of me up in uniform showing where exactly I work. I don't know why people do that. So that's 20 tips. There are many more. I encourage you to get the book, 101 Useful Tips for Rookie Police Officers. There have been training officers. There have been supervisors. Heck, there was a big PD that got bulk ordered this book for their rookies, to which I'm very grateful for that. It's important to keep learning and growing. And I would like to work one-on-one with you in virtual online coaching. So you can click right here to attend some free training on that. I look forward to talking to you again. Take care, and may God bless.